Veronica's a Partner Now is the second episode of the second season of Veronica's Closet, directed by Robert Berlinger, and I feel like this episode is starting to shape the way that the second season is going to go, because in the first episode, things were still quite rocky, but in this one, I think there's a clearer picture of things to come. So there will probably be spoilers in this episode discussion for things that happen in this episode and previous episodes, but I can't spoil what happens next because I haven't seen the next episode yet. But I am, as is always the case, very keen. So in this one, Veronica is getting used, or trying to get used to, working with Alec, and her staff, well, the rest of the team, are kind of getting on with him okay. Josh gave up his desk at one point for somebody. There are some changes that they're maybe not on board with, but a lot of them are working with him quite well. And obviously, this is very difficult for Veronica, but it's clear that Veronica knows what she's talking about, and Alec hasn't got the slightest idea. And he's not very nice about models either. There's one point where he says, and I quote, factory workers have skills, where he's comparing models to factory workers. And it's not the best attitude to have when you're running a company that thrives on models and fashion, and he's making fun of these things, and that's not great. So I'm not sure about what his future with the company will be, but I did like the direction this episode took, and I feel like ultimately where it ended up, I know I said spoilers, but I still don't want to give away too much, but ultimately where this episode ended up, I felt like I had a clearer idea of what the rest of this season might look like, of what we might expect to happen, and what the relationship between Alec and Veronica might look like. One of my favourite lines in this was, I think it was from Josh, and he said, "Why are mommy and daddy fighting?" And it was just, I thought, that's it. It's going to be like this, but maybe a little bit more ironed out than that. I loved Olive at the beginning when she was singing to cheer up Veronica. I thought that was beautiful because it did start in a very negative way. Veronica was in a terrible mood, and I thought, is this going to be negative the way the first episode of the second season was? And I kind of had a slight concern that episodes going forward would be very depressing, quite frankly. But the mood soon lifted and it became quite fascinating, and I was keen to see what would happen. So, really thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel like this episode, in a way, I feel like this should have been the first episode of the second season to start things off on a slightly more positive note. But I mean, that wouldn't have worked based on we needed the first episode to get to this point. But maybe they could have smushed the two together. I don't know. I don't mind. I'm happy with it. Really looking forward to the next episode. And I do think that while this has helped pave the way for the rest of this season, I think things are still pretty unpredictable. Keen to see what happens going forward. But definitely, Veronica's a Partner Now is a really good episode.